Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with this week in cannabis news from August 8th to the 14th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learn something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. There's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready. And we're going to start with this news from Marijuana Moment as Michigan breaks monthly cannabis sales record in July, state data shows. So happy to see this, as well as Michigan is chugging along, and obviously a very competitive market makes for lower prices, and that maybe makes for more spending, as we're seeing more money spent on adult use cannabis, even in Michigan with a population of 9.9 million, than in Illinois, which has a population of 12 million. But again, Michigan likely has a lot more sales outlets and stores and dispensaries to sell than Illinois does currently at the moment. But with that, Michigan set a new monthly record for cannabis sales in July, nearly reaching 210 million according to data published by the state cannabis regulatory agency on Thursday. The state saw 21.1 million in medical cannabis sales and then 188.8 million in adult use cannabis purchases last month. And that total is about 15 million greater than the previous monthly record set in April. So love to see that progress moving along in Michigan. And so there's a lot more detail here if you wanted to pause to read, but just happy to share that as states are chugging along and breaking records. But medical sales are heading in the right direction as well, as OzarksFirst.com shares that Arkansas medical cannabis sales increased to 23.3 million in July. So good job, Arkansas, a medical-only market, slowly but surely chugging along as medical cannabis patients spent 23.3 million in July at Arkansas's 38 dispensaries to obtain 4,171 pounds of cannabis. So there's more you can pause to read if you like, just to highlight that the Arkansas Department of Health reports that there are 88,893 active patient cards, so lots of room for growth and obviously expansion in this program over time. And so with that, we've got the Office of Medical Cannabis Use highlighting Florida. So if we scroll down to see the dispensaries approved for this past week from August 8th to the 12th, we can see one Cookies, Florida location approved in Miami. And if we look at the qualified patient count, we can see that increase to 741,454, which represents an increase of 1,241 patients week over week. So slowly but surely, numbers climbing back up into the 4-digit range, which we're happy to see. And then if we scroll down, we can see dispensations for August 5th to the 11th, and we can see all the MSOs listed in the state of Florida that have active dispensaries. We can see the number of dispensary locations, and then we can see the number of milligrams of THC sold this past week, the number in milligrams of CBD sold this past week, and the number in ounces of smokable flower sold this past week. So steady sales, strong across the board. These companies battle for market share week over week and try to establish as large of a footprint as possible in preparation for that 2024 ballot initiative that will no doubt send the overall Florida market into hyperdrive. And so with that, some other state news. As Tom Engel shares, Maryland elections officials have certified the final text of the cannabis legalization referendum that will appear on the November ballot and have prepared a summary of its provisions. And so I won't go into the whole article. You can grab the link below in the description. But the good news is that the question will be posed. Question 4, do you favor the legalization of the use of cannabis by an individual who is at least 21 years of age on or after July 1st, 2023 in the state of Maryland? And so obviously this makes us optimistic that Maryland can legalize sooner than later. But again, legalization going into effect is different than launching your adult use program and seeing that come into play. And so hopefully we'll see that sooner than later, but great progress out of Maryland. While we got news out of New York, as Todd shares, so thanks Todd for sharing this, New York will start accepting cannabis dispensary applications in 2 weeks, exclusively from people harmed by the drug war. And so as New York has said before, they set the intention that they want to at least approve licenses for those social equity entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs and those harmed by the war on drugs first, before allowing MSOs and other existing cannabis operators to get in on the adult use market in the next year, 2023. And so while this does sound promising, it's a lot easier said than done. So I'm not going to hold my breath that New York is going to get anything done ahead of schedule, anticipating that they're going to see delays much like we've seen from other markets in the East Coast. But with that, this comes a month after the CCB approved the initial conditional adult use licensing rules and accepted a mock-up of the application. So I won't go through the whole article, but you can grab the link below if you're interested in the description. Hopefully they can prove me wrong and launch sooner than later. But just to highlight that, wanted to share Spence Byer's view on this because it does make sense just based on the delays, especially when the regulators focus too much on social equity as opposed to helping build the industry from the ground up, highlighting that he continues to believe New York won't start adult use sales until 2024. Fair enough, just sharing this. If you wanted to look into it, DASNY is selecting and contracting build out for each CAURD location. building out 150 stores is a heavy lift. Last I heard in July, sites haven't even been secured. Example, retrofitting an AT&T store took Sprint 2 to 3 months. And so with that, just more information on why he believes that it might not be ready in 2023, and we should expect delays until 2024. And so again, not saying that he's right, just wanted to share this as a sort of counter view to the positive news that New York could actually be getting the ball rolling, because we've heard that and we've seen nothing but delays for the most part. And so lastly, just wanted to share Christopher Norman, our favorite source on the ground in New Jersey, highlighting that a resolution of site plan approval for adult use in Bordentown Township, so New Jersey, was memorialized on July 28th, same day as New Jersey Cannabis Commission meeting. And so now, I'm not exactly sure what this last sentence here is in reference to. The main reason I'm sharing this is because I believe this sentence is in reference to the fact that Curaleaf's third adult use dispensary, which has already been approved, will likely open by the end of this month, August. So that's the main reason I'm sharing this. While hopefully September 9th we'll get some sort of development from some other approvals, hopefully from the next commission hearing date. But more importantly, just wanted to share this story because I haven't read through this article yet. I had saved it or retweeted it on my Twitter so I could pull it today, and I totally forgot that I had access to it until just now. So I pulled it up. So just happy to share it as well. On top of that, New Jersey news that New Jersey cannabis adult use sales just under 80 million from April 21st to June 30th. And cannabis sales topped 79 million in the first 70 days, but mainly to highlight what March 2 million says down here, that's a 417 million annual run rate and lots of room to grow from here, which is true. And that's just adult use sales. Medical sales were 49 million in Q2 according to the article, while total NJ cannabis sales were 139 million in Q2 of 2022. So again, I haven't even gone through this yet, so I just recommend you grab the link below. I will put the article in the description if you want to learn how New Jersey's market is progressing, but I almost forgot to even include this in the video, so I'm just happy that I remembered to pull that up and put that in there. And so moving on to Trulieve, as they deliver their record second quarter 2022 results driven by organic retail sales. And so some highlights: revenue of 320.3 million, up 49% year over year, which is great, and 1% sequentially, highlighting that Trulieve did not get the growth that Curaleaf got because they don't have exposure to that New Jersey market for the most part, I think. But obviously their different footprint from Curaleaf has helped them consistently see steady sales, as 1% is better than negative. Retail revenue grew 3% sequentially across industry-leading U.S. network of the most dispensaries, 168 dispensaries as of June 30th, 2022. So GAAP gross margin of 57% and adjusted EBITDA margins of 35%. And so as they are integrating the Harvest assets into this new entity, they are at least getting their gross margins up, which is promising to see. So we're not going to go through this whole thing, but you can pause to read Q2 2022 financial highlights if you're interested, plus Q2 2022 operational highlights, and then recent events, you can pause to read. And then main thing I'm going to go through here, not the whole financial highlights, you can pause to look through this, but their guidance. As factoring in strategic changes across our business, the impact of inflation on consumer spending, softness in wholesale markets, and the lack of visibility in the current macroeconomic environment, we are adjusting 2022 revenue guidance by 5% from the low end of our prior outlook to 1.25 billion to 1.3 billion. So not ideal, as we were expecting a bit more growth, but you have to adapt. And again, I think Trulieve is setting themselves up mostly for when Florida goes adult use, because they're going to absolutely crush when that happens. So accordingly, we anticipate adjusted EBITDA will be in the range of 415 million to 450. But again, it sucks to see them lower their guidance, but they'd rather lower the guidance and then beat it than not lower it and then not end up meeting expectations, right? And so if you wanted a deeper dive, we've got Sayshu Metacharla here with his takeaway. So thank you, Sayshu, for sharing this with us so I can share it with my audience. We got Trulieve's second quarter 2022 earnings takeaway. So we're going to go from 1 down to the bottom of this one here, so you can pause to read. Then go down from 4 all the way down to the bottom of 8. You can pause to read. And then we've got from 9 down to the end of 12. You can pause to read. And then from 13 down to end of, let's say 19 down here, you can pause to read, and then I will scroll down for the overall end, just if you wanted to read his summary down here. And so thank you, Sayshu, for sharing that. Well, we do have a video from Yahoo Finance with an interview from Kim. We are cautiously optimistic, Trulieve CEO Kim Rivers says, on the road ahead for cannabis legalization. We've got significant catalysts ahead. We have market growth in Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Maryland. And so obviously, while they're lacking in some other places, good to see them picking growth up in others. And so I'm not going to play this video, but again, if you wanted to watch it, if you happen to be invested in Trulieve or you're interested, you can grab the link below in the description. So on to another MSO, TerrAscend, sharing their second quarter 2022 as their revenue increased 31% sequentially to 65 million. Which you'd love to see, especially because it highlights that when state regulators get off their asses and launch adult use programs sooner than later, not only do all the citizens benefit, but so do the MSOs that invested a lot in that state. They can finally capitalize on the growth that they've been waiting a year and a half to capitalize on. And so while this is positive, Unfortunately, consensus estimates were a lot higher, and so TerrAscend's share price took quite the dive, but I do think if you had the courage to buy that dip, you're going to see a nice return on investment in 6 to 12 months, just based on the organic growth that this market is going to see over time since it's finally been launched. And so with that, some details, second quarter 2022 financial highlights. Won't go through it all, but if you're interested in TerrAscend or if you want to just pause to read, you can do so. Well, we've got financial summary Q2 2022 and comparative periods, but just notice the difference. With New Jersey turned off, Q1 2022, suffering from Q2 2021 last year, versus New Jersey turning on, and we see the big difference in Q2 2022. So, better late than never. And so with that, a bit more second quarter 2022 business and operational highlights if you wanted to pause to read. While we've got subsequent events and then second quarter 2022 financial results. We're not going to go through the whole thing, but you can grab the link below if you're interested. And then, so with that, we do have a deeper dive into TerrAscend's most recent quarter if you're interested from Cannavestments. So thank you, Cannavestments, for sharing your 2 cents with us, highlighting from his point of view, disappointing Q2 from TerrAscend with results well behind consensus estimates. But keep in mind, those analysts have a very short-term lens, and it's not like New Jersey is going anywhere. And so, while growth returned thanks to New Jersey and full quarter of growth and margins improved, results were short of expectations as cash flow remained negative, operational expenses expanded, and the balance sheet grew tighter. But isn't that what Daddy Constellation Brands and what Daddy Canopy is for? Either way, his thoughts, and so you can pause to read for a bit more on TerrAscend's most recent quarter. With that, on to Verano. News from other MSOs is Verano released a Signature, Reserve, and Essence branded product lines in 4 additional core cannabis markets. And so they share Verano flower is now available in new markets including Arizona, Florida, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania, with an additional launch planned in West Virginia during the second half of 2022. And so across the company's national footprint, Verano Reserve and Essence product catalogs, including Swift Lift mini pre-roll packs, are now distributed to more than 500 dispensaries across 9 states. So good to see Verano continuing to expand. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you can grab the link below or you can pause to read for a bit more information on these new launches. And with that, Air Wellness celebrates milestone in Florida with the opening of its 50th retail store in the state as well. So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, MSOs in Florida are trying to expand their footprint aggressively for that 2024 ballot initiative and for when they finally go for adult use. But good to see Air Wellness as well competing with some of the bigger MSOs of Trulieve, Cura, and Verano in that state as well. So you can pause to read for more information on this move, while Columbia Care launches first pre-rolls in New York under its leading national flower brand Seed and Strain. So no doubt, as time goes on, it seems like New York is more and more of a difficult market for legal operators to even operate in with medical alone. But fortunately, that's not scaring Columbia Care away as they continue to execute, making it the first of Columbia Care's lifestyle brands to debut in the Empire State, highlighting it's the brand's 14th market launch nationwide. So clearly they've got a lot of practice launching this successfully in other states. Seems like they're finally ready to bring these pre-rolls to New York and hopefully see some success. And so you can pause to read. We've got a bit more New York news. This one a lot more interesting from Syracuse.com. A very interesting development, and I'll share as this develops over time. But how did we get here? Is Curaleaf forced to remove thousands of medical cannabis products from New York dispensaries? Say what? Now, don't get too concerned just yet, but Curaleaf, one of New York's medical cannabis operators, has pulled tens of thousands of units of cannabis from dispensary shelves after the company switched to an unauthorized way of labeling potency that led patients to believe the cannabis they purchased was much stronger than usual. It seems like the issue is that they didn't get permission to move to this way of labeling. While Curaleaf began displaying dry weight measurements on its products in July without approval from the Office of Cannabis Management and without alerting customers. While all products in New York show wet weight, I might have said New Jersey, so apologize, obviously New York, show wet weight measurement, the dry weight method shows significantly higher THC percentages, making the cannabis more enticing for buyers looking for the biggest bang for their buck. For example, the same product could show a THC percentage of 20 using wet weight measurement, but as high as 37 using dry weight testing. And so again, still early, I don't know what this is going to lead to, but just wanted to share this story, although Curaleaf did issue a response. And so just going to share this. I haven't even gotten to read through this because I found this one this morning and just wanted to add it in, but we've received some questions regarding New York product relabeling. To be clear, we do not expect this relabeling effort to have a material impact on our business. So at least as a Curaleaf investor, you can feel good about hearing that. Our full statement can be found below. And so you can pause to read. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but if you're invested in Curaleaf and if you're interested, obviously you can just pause to read to find out their explanation of how this ended up happening. And so with that though, just happy to share what Canada Stocks 224 sort of summarizes after all that. I've seen a lot of cannabis companies talk about how they're the new industry leader after announcing M&A deals. However, following through on those promises seems to be harder than making them. And as of right now, Curaleaf remains the king. And so happy to share because while a lot of companies, whether it's Tilray, Trulieve, Cresco, want to make these claims, Curaleaf is without a doubt the largest cannabis company in the world. And so just to highlight that, going through all that news and even the most recent news from New York, still Curaleaf is still number one. And this just highlights that we've seen headlines, Cresco buying Rival to become the largest, Trulieve becomes largest U.S. cannabis company by footprint, not necessarily by revenue, Aphria, Tilray combined to create the largest cannabis company. But as we can see, as of right now, Q2 2022 revenue in USD, Curaleaf leads the way with 338, Trulieve with 320. If the Cresco and Columbia Care merger goes through, that would make them third as of right now with 314, GTI in fourth, 254. Before lastly, Tilray with a measly 158 million. But the benefit that Tilray does have as a Canadian LP that these US MSOs do not have right now is that they can uplist on major US exchanges, which allows institutional investors to easily invest in Tilray if they want exposure to that German market, as Tilray and Curaleaf are planning to expand and capitalize on that market as they plan to write up legislation that they will pass in 2023 in hopes of launching their adult use market in 2024 to expand on their already existing medical market in Europe. And with that brings us to this awesome interview from the Dales Report that they had with Curaleaf Executive Chairman Boris Jordan, as he believes safe banking has a good chance of passing in the lame duck session, which I believe is the time between when the election takes place and then the winners of that election end up taking over. And so his take below is in relation to why he believes Mitch McConnell could support it should the Republicans win the Senate in November. And this has sort of been along the same beliefs that I've had, because Mitch McConnell is also backed by the banks, and the banks want SAFE to happen, and so that's why we could see it. So here's to hoping. Now, the full interview is on YouTube here. I will put this YouTube interview in the description below as well if you wanted to tune in, but this is in response to saying why SAFE could still pass if we see a red wave in November, and here's the response.
I don't want to do with cannabis, so let's get it out during the lame duck. I can hang it on the Democrats, and I can give my lobby, the banks, what they want. So I'll give the banks, I'll get the banks off my back.
That's interesting.
And I don't need to then deal with cannabis when I'm the majority leader. So I think that's where he is right now.
And that's a real possibility you're saying.
Oh, I'm telling you guys. So I'm never going to say, I'm not going to give you percentages on this, but I can tell you that the percentages from people I trust on SAFE has gone from 50 to like 80 in the last month and a half.
So we could see something like this between, say, the midterms and the end of the calendar year is what you're thinking?
I think it's going to happen during lame duck. I mean, guys, I worked in D.C. in 1986. That was a lame duck year. I can tell you, and if you look at the history, more laws get passed in lame duck Congresses than they do during what you'll call because.
And so while hope certainly is not an investment strategy, if I was Mitch McConnell and I was playing politics, that simply just makes sense to get cannabis out of the way so you never have to think about it, and you can appease the banks that have wanted SAFE to pass for over a year and a half now. And so again, don't know what's going to happen. This is not advice. Plan accordingly for your own situation, but I'd rather be in for when that does happen than miss out, because it's still a when not if scenario. And so with that, apparently MJ Stock Trader had an interview with him yesterday. I've not been able to even tune in, so I do plan to listen to that later today. But here's today's Spaces with Boris Jordan, setting me straight on a few issues. And I imagine he does echo a lot of what he said in that Dales Report interview. And so regardless, just sharing this here, you can grab the link below if you're interested. And so with that, on to some other state news. As Dan Adams shares, new out of Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker has signed into law extensive reforms to the state's cannabis industry. The measure will create a loan fund for equity entrepreneurs, crack down on municipal fees, and allow cannabis cafes, among other provisions. So love to see progress making its way through Massachusetts as well. So you can pause to read if you're interested in what the Boston Globe has to say more on that story. So with that, Todd also shares that Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission approves rules for medical cannabis. The vote will allow the commission to send out license applications in late October. So good to see Alabama getting their medical program rolling, as I believe it was last year they voted to legalize medical cannabis in some forms. And I imagine this is good for anyone in Alabama that needs access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative to opioids. It's coming, as incremental reform is always better than all at once. Well, we've got this one out of Kansas. So thanks, Todd, for sharing. As a Kansas senator said, revised medical cannabis legislation could be filed as soon as November. Is there any incentive or reason why he might want to do that? I guess it's because questions are rising of how Kansas will handle possible Missouri adult use legalization, because although it's in Kansas's best interest to reform their cannabis laws and, provide jobs and tax dollars for their citizens, now they obviously don't want Kansas citizens driving over to Missouri to buy adult use cannabis and bringing it back, because then they're going to be giving a ton of tax dollars to Missouri. And so, interestingly enough, Missouri is legalizing for adult use. Kansas is looking to revise and legalize for medical use, so they're not the same at all. Kansas is way behind Missouri. But regardless, it's good to see that states like Kansas are noticing what other states around them are doing and starting to realize that it's in their best interest to follow that as well. And so last few stories, one from Marijuana Moment. Apparently Schumer touts Senate cannabis research bill among historic progress under Biden as legalization measure lingers. How pathetic can this man be? Because no, historic progress would have been descheduling cannabis from the CSA, normalizing the plant and admitting that it is a medicine, and acknowledging that we've got 29,000 plus studies already looking at potential medical benefits as opposed to the harms, which all studies in the past were designed to look for and couldn't find it. That would have been historic. Instead, Schumer's done nothing. He's delayed passing SAFE, which has the votes that could have passed a year and a half ago, would have saved many American lives, stopped a lot of armed robberies because it would have gotten cash off the streets, but instead he chooses to work for big pharma, big tobacco, big alcohol, install and do nothing. So again, it's not to say that he won't do something from now until November, because he can do a whole lot that will help a whole lot of people in this cannabis industry, and it's ultimately up to him. I just gotta say thank you, Schumer, for teaching me a very valuable life lesson, never to trust the words of someone, but to only trust the actions and to look at their actions and to take their words always with a grain of salt. Because I was silly and naive to trust that you were going to work in the best interest of the American people, and I hope you prove me wrong from now until November and end up passing something SAFE plus some variation in that lame duck session. But this is just hilarious, because obviously if you've been following my channel and you're in the know, as the research bill isn't even Schumer's, it hasn't passed yet, and Schumer, you're nothing short of a crook unless you keep some of your campaign promises from now until November. And to make that even funnier, is that Tom Mangle shares that the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund published an analysis arguing that Senate Dems' new federal cannabis legalization bill won't on its own do enough to repair the drug war's past harms. Honestly, if you just deschedule the plant, making cannabis go from an illegal substance to a legal substance, that would solve so many of the past harms caused by the failed war on drugs. But they clearly can't see that, and obviously they're paid not to see that. And so interestingly enough, states must also pass legal cannabis laws with expungement. I know that states are already doing that, and the states that have done it have already seen the benefits. A lot of states obviously have a ways to go and to start doing this. The link will be below if you want to read more, but just highlighting that Schumer's grand plan of CAOA is even a failure in itself. And if he just kept his campaign promises, he'd keep a lot more popularity, and the Dems would probably favor a lot better. And so last few stories before we head out. Tom Blickman, thank you for sharing this. As a majority in Denmark want cannabis legalized and the state to be responsible for sales. 54% answered yes to the question, 28% answered no, while the remaining 18 answered I don't know. So we've got an overwhelming majority, 54% answering yes. And while it might not be in the best interest to have the government run that sort of thing, you'd want to be able to privatize it for the benefits of everybody, tax dollars, jobs, and all that, and for it to just run as smoothly as possible. Either way, good to see this progress out of Denmark. Well, lastly, happy to share Marijuana Moment highlights. Colombia's new president talks up cannabis legalization, freeing prisoners and exporting cannabis to other countries. We need more of this. So thank you, President of Colombia. We'll see if cannabis can be exported, and we'll earn a few dollars because half of humanity has legalized it. And the fact is humanity has been using it for medicine for tens of at least thousands of years that we know. And so these last two articles, won't go through them all, but you can grab them all in the link below in the description. And that is it for today's episode, folks. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to try to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody.